Hey guys, JamesMCD Reviews here, and welcome back to the movies. I can't believe I'm in a position where I can finally say that. I'm so glad that I am finally getting to leave my house and go to the theater again. I have missed this theater experience so goddamn much. Over the past couple of weeks, I have seen 5 movies that I really wanted to talk about, but they're kind of like either smaller or have already been talked about to death by everyone on the internet, so I don't want to devote a whole bunch of time to them. So you know what that means. It's time for a real quick Ketchup review. We're gonna rapid fire through 5 movies from worst to best with my real quick thoughts on them. And yeah, here we go. So starting off with My Brother's Crossing, and I have a very funny story about how I ended up seeing this movie. I was out for a walk one day, and I was passing by an AMC theater, and then it was looking like it was gonna rain. So just randomly, I pulled out my phone and started looking at the AMC listings of what was gonna be playing within the next maybe 30 to 45 minutes. And My Brother's Crossing was the only thing playing, literally the only thing. And I was like, do I really wanna waste my time watching this stupid fucking movie? And then it started to rain, so I was like, well, I guess I have no choice. So yeah, I sat down and watched it, and yeah, it was really fucking bad. It was so fucking awful. The basic concept is it's a religious movie, by the way. So there's this pastor who, he accidentally runs over this guy and his wife, and he's dealing with sort of the guilt and the paranoia of that, and the story ultimately boils down to the brother of the guy that got run over has to forgive the pastor, and the pastor has to forgive himself, and he has to learn to live with the mistake that he made. And I mean, that's a pretty simple and relatively harmless and even kind of charming sounding story, but just the way that they execute it here is so fucking bad. It's absolutely insane. First of all, there's no real conflict here. There's no, you would think from a description like that, it would be like, oh wow, that sounds like there's gonna be some real drama in play here. But no, nothing really happens. They show us a few scenes of the pastor and the brother crying a lot. And that's really it. That's really their conflict. And it's resolved so quickly. You think when they set up things like the brother, when he's talking about his brother getting run over, which the dialogue in that scene, top notch really, when his sister or some lady or something's he's or she's I've forgiven the pastor for what he did, and the guy's I haven't forgiven him, I want him prosecuted, and then the girl's you mean persecuted. Great writing, top notch. But I mean, you feel like they're gonna build on that a little bit more, but they just never do. Within maybe 20 to 30 minutes, he's already moved on and forgiven them, and even decides to show up to court and pay for the pastor's fines and stuff like that. So what was even the point of all this? There's no point to any of this. And I mean, beyond that, you'd think from how I'm describing it, it's a relatively short movie. Most of the quote-unquote drama is solved within maybe 40 to 50 minutes. But then it does the fucking Return of the King ending where it has a million goddamn endings. It's after the courtroom scene, so all of a sudden, here's a scene of the brother and the pastor having lunch together, and he stands up for the pastor when some guy tells him off or something like that. Then all of a sudden, here's a scene of the brother starting his own missionary, and here's a scene of the two of them speaking at each other's services, and here's this scene, here's this scene, here's this, and towards the end of it, I was just bored out of my goddamn mind and praying that it would fucking end. The things that were making me laugh though, well, one is a lot of the dialogue. There is literally a scene where the wife of the pastor, she walks in, and there's a news clip on of the talking about the accident. She grabs the remote, turns off the TV, throws the remote down on the couch, and yells, "Not today, devil!" And I am so glad that I was the only one in the theater at that point, because I just burst out laughing. Another thing that made me laugh is just how hilariously bargain bin this movie is. Yeah, I imagine that religious films don't have the biggest budgets in the world, but Jesus Christ, like, I've seen fan films with better production value than this. Like, this looks like it was edited using, like, the prepackaged transitions and effects in iMovie, and, like, the opening credit scene looks like it's being rendered right in front of you in real time. Everything about it is just shitty quality. God, Jesus Christ, motherfucking God. I really, if you couldn't tell by now how bad this movie is, then I don't know what to say. This is definitely gonna make the top 5 worst of the year. It's got some really stiff competition with Grudge though as being the worst movie of the year, but I mean, I gave them the same score, 0.5 out of 5, but I don't know, this at least wasn't boring. Like, I was still awake for this. Next up on the list is The New Mutants. Yes, you heard me correctly. This movie actually did release in theaters this time, and I went to go see it. For those of you following this movie's production, you know that it went through some heavy reshoots. The release date got pushed back maybe like 4 times, and like over the past like 3 years. Even though I kind of feel bad for it and I want to like grade it with some bit of leniency, like just because of how bad I feel and how the people behind it really just kind of didn't care, and they just sort of threw it out in the theaters just so they didn't have to deal with it anymore. That's not going to be the case, because the movie was still average at best. Basically, you've seen the trailers more than once by now. So you know the story is basically there's this girl named Daniela who she discovers she has some sort of unnatural ability, and she gets kidnapped and placed in this hospital, or what they claim to be a hospital. She's put in this place with all these other like sort of rebellious like teen YA stereotypes with mutant powers, and they keep telling her, oh, you're here to get better, we're here to help you, and stuff like that. But over time, things start to get a bit darker, and she realizes that they're not here to help her, they're here to keep her captive there and inevitably kill her. And so all the teenagers have to work together and try to get out of there and stuff like that. So like I said, the story is basically just meh. Like, the movie overall is meh. Like, it was marketed as, you know, an X-Men horror movie, and it's not really all that scary. I mean, it has some like creepy imagery, and it had like some potential and some like creepy concepts, but it wasn't really all that scary. And what didn't help its case was the characters were all just really generic and mutant versions of the typical like YA teenager character tropes. The pacing in the first 2 acts of the movie was very kind of like slow, and I have a feeling they were doing that on purpose, just, you know, to sort of build tension and stuff like that, but it just came across as boring. The actors were pretty good though, I'll give them that. Like, Anya Taylor-Joy is in this movie and she does really good. Maisie Williams. They have the guy that played Jonathan from Stranger Things in this movie, although they give him this really shitty southern accent, which was kind of distracting, but he does a really good job in this movie. But yeah, beyond that, everything else is just kind of bland and basic. The third act, however, is where things really start to pick up and it actually becomes really entertaining. Like, if you were to tell me like several years ago when this movie was supposed to come out that it would end with a bunch of teenagers fighting a giant demon bear, I would surprisingly be like, you know what, that kind of makes sense and that sounds amazing and I want to see it. But I mean, all the like little things wrong with the movie really brings it down, and just how it was treated brings it down for me. Like, by far it's not the worst movie I've seen this year, but I don't know, I just wish that all that time that it spent in production hell meant that it was going to be actually, you know, good. So yeah, going to my ranking, I'd probably have to give this maybe a 2.5 out of 5. Next up is the personal history of David Copperfield, and it's fine. That's really all I can say about this one. I was actually really excited for this one from the trailer that I got, but you know you can't really get into the movie when an hour and a half in you're like, when is he gonna make the Statue of Liberty disappear? Like, like I was genuinely confused, like not only when I saw the trailer and the posters and all this stuff, I was genuinely convinced that this was a movie about the magician, the magician David Copperfield, but no, I had to actually look up during the movie, oh wait, there was a Charles Dickens novel or something called David Copperfield, and he was like a writer or something like that. So, yeah, I'm a dumbass, but this movie was fine. It was passable. It was charming enough. I like the guy that played David Copperfield. He was very like charismatic, and the other actors in the movie were pretty good, even though like all the characters are like assholes and they take advantage of David every chance they get. The set design and the editing were pretty decent as well. But I mean, overall, I don't really have that much to say about it. It was just good. It was perfectly serviceable. Going to my ranking, I'd probably have to give it maybe a 3 out of 5. Next up is Tenet, the new Christopher Nolan movie starring John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. I was really excited for this movie, and I was equally excited that I got to see it in a theater rather than watching it at home. It was pretty good. It was a pretty solid movie. It obviously has its flaws, but overall, I really am glad that I went and saw it. Basically, the story is these two, I guess, like officers or agents or whatever, discover there are some artifacts or things that are like moving in reverse, and they basically deduce that these are items from. It's really hard to explain. It's almost like a parallel dimension, kind of, where everything is like going in reverse, so it's almost like the upside down, but if it was like going backwards. I'm sure they explain it smarter than me, and I'm sure you have to see it multiple times to understand what they're talking about, but that's kind of how I like visualize it, basically. And they ultimately discover that someone is using this, I guess, technology or something to destroy the world or something like that, or destroy a bunch of people, so they have to go like through different points of time, kind of, to figure out what this guy is doing and stop him and save the day and all this stuff. So yeah, like I said, from that description, very confusing how they are basically explaining the plot. But I mean, it was enjoyable enough to where I was still like invested, even though I was confused invested, but still invested nonetheless. I really love how this movie is presented. I love the way they shoot time travel with like having like fight scenes that are like half going forward and half in reverse. Like that kind of stuff is really cool, and I'm really curious when this movie comes to like home media. I really want to see like the behind the scenes of like how they would shoot that stuff and edit it, because it looked really grand and spectacular. The sound mixing was a bit off though. Like the music and sound effects were very loud, and it's not just because I saw this movie in Dolby HD. It was because for some reason they had like the characters' dialogue would be like right here, and the sound effects and music would be like right here, so it would like be really loud and drown out what certain characters were saying. So I thought all the actors did really well, particularly Robert Pattinson. I thought he was really good in this movie, and I'm excited to see what he does with Batman when that eventually comes out. The characters, however, were a bit sloppily developed. Like, they kind of just throw you into the middle of them, and they just expect you to know who these people are and care, and they don't really do anything to further them throughout the story. But yeah, like, beyond a few minor flaws, like, I really did enjoy my time watching this movie. Is it the greatest? No. Is it gonna make my top 10? Probably not, but I still had a fun time watching it. So going to my ranking, I would probably have to give this, I'll say I'll give it a 4. And last but not least is Words on Bathroom Walls. I literally just saw this movie yesterday, and I fucking loved it. Basically, the movie is, there's this kid named Adam who is suffering from schizophrenia. He has sort of like a psychotic episode in one of his science classes that causes him to get kicked out of school, and then he gets transferred to this Catholic high school where they're hoping, after taking his medication, they're hoping that he will get better and stay healthier and pass all of his courses and get into cooking school and all that stuff. And basically the story is just him like learning how to cope with his schizophrenia and learning how to not hide from it and not push away the people trying to help him and all that stuff. And I honestly like really love this movie. Like, if I had to nitpick it even the slightest bit, I would say the story is a bit predictable. Like, you know it's gonna have a happy ending, but still the journey that they take to get to that happy ending is really fucking stressful. Like, the way that they portray schizophrenia, and like, I don't have schizophrenia, at least I don't think I do, and I don't know anyone that has schizophrenia, so I don't know. And I know something like that is probably a spectrum, so it's probably different for each person. But the way that they shoot schizophrenia in this is fucking terrifying. It's weird. It's like, and this is gonna be a really weird comparison, but this is the best way I can describe it. It's almost like a cross between Inside Out and Venom in a way, because like he'll be seeing like these sort of like characters that are like personalities. Like, you'll have like this guy that's like the bodyguard, like the super tough, like big guy with a baseball bat looking to bash some kneecaps in. The other one is like this really zen, like, namaste type of girl that like signifies like peace and love and all that stuff. And then you'll have this guy who I should mention is played by the guy that played the original Roderick in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies, which I just found to be fantastic and amazing. Who's like this just bro-y, just dude bro in a, like, only walking around in like a bathrobe and underwear and just like all that stuff. So he'll be seeing like all these characters, but then also like sometimes he'll, in the back of his head, like he'll hear like this really deep, like sort of demonic sounding voice, like, and he'll see like black smoke just appearing out of thin air, and like his voices will be telling him shit like, "You don't belong here, you're making everyone's life worse." And like that mixed in with like the camera angles and the editing and the visuals and stuff like that, it really does put you in the viewpoint of Adam, and it really does show you what he's going through, and it's stressful to watch. It really is. Also, I thought the actors did a really good job too. The kid playing Adam is really fucking good. He's a really, really talented actor, and I want to see him in more stuff. Hold on, let me look him up real quick. Charlie Plummer is his name. It looks like he's just been in a lot of like really indie stuff, so I hope that he gets to be in more like mainstream stuff, because he was a really good actor. All the actors did a really good job. The girl that plays the love interest is really good. The parents are also really good. I also really liked the drama. Like, the drama, it didn't just feel like the writer putting the words in these characters' mouths. It felt like genuine, like, because these are the types of things that I'd imagine kids with schizophrenia or any type of, mental illness would go through. These are the types of like experiences they would have and the types of conversations that they would have, and it felt real, and it felt engaging, and it felt, when the sad moments kicked in, they felt really sad. They didn't feel forced at all, and you are just along for this ride, and you're really rooting for Adam. You don't want to see him hurt himself or anyone else, or you want to see him come out on top over this and get better and stuff like that, and end up with the pretty girl at the end and stuff like that. And it's just really satisfying and emotional, and honestly, this movie was a really big surprise. Like, I didn't expect to love it as much as I did, but I'm so glad that I loved it as much as I did. I'm so glad that I saw it in the first place, and I may end up going back on this later, but I don't even care. I think that this is a 5 out of 5 movie. This is honestly one of the best movies I've seen this year. So there you go, that does it for this Ketchup review. Welcome back to the movies. Let me know if you've seen any of these movies down in the comments. What are your thoughts on any of them? And what movies are you excited to finally get to see in theaters again? Let me know all that stuff down in the comments. Apart from that, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date on when I'm posting. Follow me on all my social media, subscribe to my main channel. Everything you need to know me in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you later.
We don't need no education.